In this video, I'll be going over integrating ConnectWise RMM with ConnectWise PSA. This is useful for when you want to seamlessly transition your tickets from RMM into your PSA without manual intervention. This process requires you to first configure items in PSA, specifically API keys and service boards, and then set up the integration within the ASIO platform, where you would log into ConnectWise RMM. We begin in ConnectWise PSA, where I will create API keys. In the PSA portal, go to System, Members, API Member, the member you wish to create the keys under, API Keys, New Item Icon. Please note API keys should be created under the API member only. Enter a description for the API keys and click Save to generate the keys. Please note, once these keys are generated, store them in a safe location. Once you navigate away from the screen, the private key will no longer be visible and encrypted. It will not be recoverable and new keys will have to be generated. Now that the keys have been successfully generated, create a new service board for the integration. It is highly recommended that you create new service boards for each ConnectWise RMM service you utilize. For example, if you use both NOC and Help Desk services through ConnectWise RMM, you should generate a service board for the NOC and a service board for the Help Desk. This will avoid confusion for your team. To create service boards in the PSA portal, go to System, Setup Tables. Search Service Board in the Table column and select the service board setup. Click the New Item Plus and fill in all applicable information for the service board and click Save. Now that the board has been created, go to the Teams tab and ensure a team is configured for the tickets to be associated with. If no team exists in your PSA environment, you'll need to create a new one by clicking the new icon, filling in the required information and selecting the default checkbox, and clicking the Save button. Now that the appropriate configurations are set up in PSA, we will now configure the integration in ConnectWise RMM. From the ASIO platform, select Settings, Admin, Integration, PSA Integration. In the Choose PSA to Integrate drop-down menu, select ConnectWise Manage. In the ConnectWise Site field, enter the URL you use to log into ConnectWise PSA. In the ConnectWise Login Company, enter the company ID information for your company. In the ConnectWise Public and Private Key fields, enter the public and private keys you generated earlier in your PSA instance. Once you have entered all the information, click the Authorize button. Now that the keys have been successfully authorized, the wizard will walk you through configuring all the items that will be synced over to PSA. The first step is syncing data is configuring ConnectWise RMM sites to the respective companies in PSA. Please note, PSA uses company site hierarchy in the system, whereas ConnectWise RMM uses just sites. In the wizard, for each ConnectWise RMM site, select the corresponding company in PSA. For simple one-to-one correlation, where you're using sites in RMM as companies, leave the ConnectWise site name as main. If the site and CWRMM are part of a larger organization, use the larger organization as a company in PSA and each site in RMM as a site in PSA. Once all the sites are mapped, click Next to continue. The next step is to sync ticket priorities. This will map ticket priorities in ConnectWise RMM to PSA. So when a change happens in one portal, the corresponding portal will know what status to put it in. After configuring the appropriate ticket priorities, select the boards you wish to use for each ConnectWise RMM service. The NOC board will be used to communicate with the ConnectWise NOC teams. Any ticket on this board with a status of new or assigned to NOC will sync to the ConnectWise NOC technicians. The Help Desk service board will be used to communicate with the ConnectWise Help Desk teams. Any ticket on the board in the assigned to Help Desk status will sync to the ConnectWise Help Desk technicians. Please note, if a ticket is created with a new status for a site that is not opted in for Help Desk services, the ticket will be synced to the ConnectWise NOC team. Once you have selected the appropriate boards to sync tickets to, you can choose if comments from ConnectWise RMM team goes into the internal or discussion note pods of the PSA tickets by selecting the appropriate radio button. Select a site in the catch-all site drop-down for any tickets that are not associated with a site in RMM. Once satisfied with all selections, click Next. The next section allows you to configure the device types and device attributes, which are stored in PSA as configurations. All available device types and attributes are selected by default. If you have a specific reason for not using one of the available configurations, for example, using a third-party tool for pulling warranty information, deselect the Warranty Expiration Date option as to not duplicate efforts. For more information on devices and configurations associated with them, please refer to the device types and device attributes in the ConnectWise API integration setup documentation. Once satisfied with the selections, click Next. The next section is for if PSA is utilized for billing. If PSA is not used for billing, you can leave this as disabled, which is the default configuration. Once enabled, you can select specific agreements and product details from PSA for device billing for each of the sites in ConnectWise RMM. Click the corresponding plus button to select the appropriate information. This step must be taken for each individual site to complete the integration process. Once finished, click Next. The next section is for notifications. Select the checkbox next to the user that will be sent email alerts regarding the integration of ConnectWise RMM and PSA. Those users will be notified once the ticket and asset integrations have been completed. Click Next to continue. Once all the integration details have been provided, click the Activate button to complete the integration. I have successfully integrated ConnectWise RMM and PSA. Depending on the volume, tickets will be synced within 2 to 3 hours, and assets will be synced within 24 hours. Once the initial asset sync has been completed, new tickets will sync every 2 minutes and assets will be synced every hour. For additional information on this process, please check out the university documentation.